Human Rights Commission says it's investigating complaints from several workers who say they've been threatened that they could be dismissed, that they could lose their jobs because they're not vaccinated against COVID-19. It comes a week after the Labour Minister, Nxumalo, said employers must find a reasonable resolution that accommodates all parties where employees refuse to be vaccinated for medical or constitutional grounds. For more on this, we're joined now by the CEO of the South African Human Rights Commission, Bunang Jones. Mr. Jones, good evening to you. Thank you for your time on the Pulse tonight. How many people are complaining to you? What are people actually worried about? Are people coming and saying they're being forced to get a vaccination?
Yes, people are coming forward with allegations that their employers are attempting to force them to take the vaccination. The Commission has thus far received over 30 complaints from employees in the corporate and the public sector.
Do you believe then that a workplace cannot force you, cannot require a worker to get vaccinated? Is that your understanding of it?
Well, our understanding is that the law as it is now does not give employers the leeway to do that, although there are directives from the Department of Employment and Labour. But in South Africa, we don't have a specific legal framework that addresses this issue of compulsory vaccinations. And even courts of law have yet to pronounce on the issue of compulsory vaccinations, although there are judicial pronouncements on Section 12 of the Constitution, which guarantees the right to bodily integrity.
The Labour Minister said last week that a workplace, and let me just be very clear, so he doesn't mean an employer, he says a workplace, by which I think he meant a health and safety committee, and this was in the directive, that a health and safety committee which would include workers and managers can require that a worker get vaccinated. That was the Labour Department. Interestingly, and I thought this was important, COSATU, which represents workers, agrees with the legal view of the Labour Minister. Are the Labour Minister and COSATU wrong, or are they right?
Well, COSATU is within its rights. We are currently reviewing the legal opinion from our legal team. We have an internal, an in-house legal team that has looked into this matter, and we will be guided by the legal opinion. But over the years, the promotion, protection, and upholding of human rights has been viewed primarily as the responsibility of public entities. And this vaccination issue raises a number of legal and human rights issues. And human rights issues or human rights obligations are often met with indifference in the private sector. And we see this as an opportunity for us to facilitate a conversation so that employers have a meaningful engagement with their employees. There has to be a consultative process before employers get to that stage. They have to conduct a risk assessment and then make a determination as to whether they will require the taking of vaccines within their workplace. So these are some of the issues that we are looking at as the Commission. We have not yet made a final determination. We'll be guided by the legal opinion.
Okay, I just want to get this right. So you've been asking for people, I mean, you went on Twitter and asked for people to come forward with complaints before you had a legal opinion, before you knew what the law was?
No, the law is very clear. The law is very clear. Section 12, subsection 2, guarantees the right to bodily integrity. South Africa, as we speak, does not have legislation that compels people to take vaccination. Our highest court has not pronounced on the issue of compulsory vaccinations. The higher courts of this country have pronounced on Section 12 of the Constitution in the matter relating to MDR-TB, which posed serious threats to public health. The patients were compelled or forcibly admitted to health facilities. And we are now dealing with a different situation, and we are hopeful that should there be a test case, we'll be able to develop our jurisprudence when it comes to vaccination. At the moment, there isn't much clarity on this. We are, however, also aware about the limitation of rights which are provided for in Section 36 of the Constitution. So this matter is quite complex. There are competing rights, and we have to balance all those rights and make a final determination.
Okay, I mean, there are all sorts of things here. I mean, you could argue also as the Human Rights Commission, and I'm sure you will, that a government has an obligation to provide people who want a vaccination with the vaccination. I mean, I can see you nodding. I presume you would say that as well, if someone wanted one, right?
Yes, we have been quite clear as the Commission that we support and welcome the government's vaccination program. We are, as we speak, across the 9 provincial offices, monitoring the rollout of the vaccination program. The Commission has called on all South Africans to use this opportunity to take the vaccine. So the tweet and the call for people to come forward does not in any way undermine the efforts by government, or does not in any way contradict our position when it comes to vaccines. We still want to reaffirm our support for all South Africans to take the vaccine so that we reach herd immunity.
Okay, you mentioned the example of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. I think it was multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. I had it as extremely drug resistant tuberculosis, but if I remember, I think it was 2009, around then, a group of patients with this disease, very difficult to treat, managed to escape from a quarantine facility, and then the argument was, can they be forced to go back to lose their freedom, essentially, while they're being treated? And the reason that the courts ruled that they could lose their freedom temporarily, even though they had broken no law, was because the disease is so dangerous. So, you will also know the argument that people who are not vaccinated put only themselves at risk. I'm back with COVID-19 now, not tuberculosis. But people who are not vaccinated put only themselves at risk. But epidemiologists also tell us that it's very important to vaccinate everybody. This is actually an argument to vaccinate, for example, foreign nationals in South Africa, because new variants of COVID-19 will only develop in people who are not vaccinated. And those new variants could then put people who are vaccinated at risk. So, for example, we know that the Delta variant developed in people who had not been vaccinated. The Beta variant developed in people who had not been vaccinated. The AstraZeneca vaccine doesn't work against the Beta variant. The Sinovac vaccine doesn't work against the Delta variant. The point is, can some people refuse to get vaccinated and put people who are vaccinated at risk? Because that's what could happen.
Yes, we on the one hand, we have this public interest to vaccinate enough people so that herd immunity is created. On the other hand, we have to also note the provisions of the National Health Act, which guarantee that people can or are allowed to make an informed choice. And that's why we have been calling government to intensify and amplify awareness about its vaccination programs so that they deal with misinformation. Although it may be true that by vaccinating enough people, herd immunity is created, there is no guarantee or certainty about the effectiveness of the vaccine, its long-term effects on people. So it is still possible to contract COVID after having received a vaccine, but I don't want to profess to be an epidemiologist, but this is information that is publicly available about the vaccine. But what we are saying as the Commission is that we should look at all these competing rights and then see what we should do. But we want any mass vaccination to promote the principles of Ubuntu. It should be consultative. It shouldn't just be something that is arbitrarily done. There should be consultation. There should be persuasion. There should be constant engagement and information sessions so that most South Africans take the vaccination.
Mr. Jones, I understand what you're trying to do, I think. I think if I were the health minister, well, let me say if I was the acting health minister, and I'd seen your tweet calling for people who had been told they had to get a vaccine to come to you, I would have banged my head against the desk. You say that you don't want to undermine the vaccine effort, and I want to believe you on that. But wouldn't it have been better for people to just come to you? People know where you are. People have lawyers. People have access to information. We know that there are one or two prominent people who have questioned this. But for you to be seen or to be placed in a position in which you could be seen to be supporting people who disagree in vaccines, and you know how difficult this area can be, do you not believe that you've undermined government a little bit here? I mean, perhaps with the best intentions, but do you not believe that maybe the tweet, maybe the way that you've gone about it could have been slightly better, perhaps?
Well, it may appear to be an unpopular thing to do, but the law does guarantee patient autonomy, and that is asserted in very strong terms. It does provide for that, and that's what we have done, and as the commission. So there's no contradiction. If you look at the statements we've released on this issue, opinion pieces that have been written by the commission on this issue, we have been consistent around the issue of empowering people in order for them to exercise their discretion and to make an informed choice.
But the precedent on the multi-drug resistant tuberculosis case and the possibility of a new variant only coming from people who are not vaccinated would suggest that if we follow the precedent, there might well be a situation in which people can be told they have to get vaccinated or a vaccination is required.
But the law is silent at the moment. The law is silent. That case is subject to interpretation. And others have argued that in this specific issue of mandatory vaccination, that it may be argued that the precedent that you are relying on may not be applicable because we are dealing with a different set of circumstances at the moment.
Bunang Jones, you and I may not agree on everything, but I'm sure you and I will agree on the fact this is going to end up in not just in front of one judge, but probably 11 of them.
That's where it's going. Thank you.
Bunang Jones, thanks very much indeed, the CEO of the South African Human Rights Commission. I do appreciate your time on The Pulse tonight.